Hi folks, this is Matt Ingram with a quick tour of RStudio. I introduced RStudio very briefly in a previous video introducing R and how one accesses or uses R, the different interfaces that exist for using and accessing R. In this video we're going to go into RStudio in a little bit more depth, but if you haven't watched that previous video, I recommend you do so first, because then the intuition for looking at RStudio in greater depth will be clearer. First of all, we might want to clarify what RStudio is. RStudio is what is called an Integrated Development Environment, or IDE. What this means is basically that RStudio has lots of features that make it easier to use R, to interact with R. Downloading and installing and working within RStudio is not required for this class, but I do recommend it. It does make using R quite a bit easier, especially for people who are new to R. So again, if you like the R GUI that comes with the standard R installation, feel free to keep using it. If you think you might like working in RStudio, then I strongly recommend you give it a shot. So the first thing we'd like to do is download and install RStudio. We do that by following this link right here. This will take us to the RStudio homepage, rstudio.com. Then we'll want to follow this link here, download RStudio. Here we have two options, the desktop option and the server option. You would like the desktop option. In case you want to, there's a short 1.5 minute video here on the top right that you can watch if you'd like a quick orientation to RStudio. But otherwise, then click on this RStudio desktop link and follow that. There are two options here, an open source edition and a commercial edition. Make sure you pick the free open source one and download this to your desktop. It's this option here on the lower left. And this will take you to a new page, and here under installers for supported platforms you'll see several options. Most of us are working on Windows or Apple machines, so pick your operating system. I'm on a Windows machine, so I'd pick this first option here. You'll see the installer installing on the left here. You see that I've installed it at least once previously on this machine. And then once it finishes installing, you can click on it and it'll walk you through. Okay, so it's not going to let me do it because RStudio is running on my machine, but it'll basically walk you through in a very straightforward way a series of steps to install RStudio. Once you've done so, you might want to start playing in both the R GUI and RStudio environment just to get a sense of what works. One way to do that will be provided in this video, but feel free to play around in both environments and see which one works for you. I'm going to quickly review some advantages of RStudio over the standard R GUI interface, and then we'll walk through an example from Chapter 1 illustrating these advantages with a template R script that I've provided for you, and that should be in a folder in the on Blackboard for the first section on R. So first let's review some advantages of RStudio. In the scripts themselves, RStudio affords you the ability to search much more flexibly. So you can search through your code more easily to find mistakes, to find repetitive mistakes. You can do search and replace within your code. RStudio also highlights different parts of your code, parts of speech, so to speak. So you can tell which parts are code, which parts are comments, which parts are different code fragments or quotations or brackets or parentheses, all different portions of programming code that become very important to be able to identify. And then RStudio also prompts you in different ways to complete what you're coding. So for instance, if you type a quotation mark, an open quotation mark, RStudio automatically completes the quotation. So you don't need to type two quotations mark. You just type one quotation mark and start typing, and the closing quotation mark is already there. Same thing with parentheses and brackets. Within the console, RStudio also colors commands output and other warnings and errors in different colors, allowing you to more quickly identify different parts of your output. And then RStudio offers you several other windows so that you can very quickly get a sense of your data, browse through different plots, check to see which packages are installed, and open. It has a very handy help feature, the searchable help feature. You can also scroll forwards and backwards through the different searches that you've done. You can see the recent history of commands that you've executed. So there's a lot of different windows available to you in RStudio that make using R much easier, especially if you're a new arrival to R, if R is new to you. And then lastly, there's two things. One is a rather general sort of miscellaneous advantage, is that you can change the display preferences. So if you want to change the colors to suit your personality, you can do so in RStudio. That's rather cosmetic. But then there are lots of advanced options in RStudio for keeping track of your code as you share it with other people. Maybe if you're working in groups or working in teams, say later on after your Albany, if you're working on a team project, you can keep track of different versions of your code and changes to that code. And you can also make your workflow very efficient by generating reports, presentations, etc. Within RStudio, including parts or whole portions of your code. So we'll come to some of these more advanced workflow options in RStudio down the road once we become more familiar with R, but I just wanted to highlight some of these for you right at the beginning. So moving back to our outline, let's illustrate some of these advantages by walking through the material in Chapter 1 in both the graphical user interface, RGUI, and RStudio. Let's see what that looks like. So this is the graphical user interface that is installed with the standard R installation. This is the one that Pollock discusses in his book and introduces in Chapter 1. So this format should at least be nominally familiar to you. And then this is the RStudio interface. I've already changed the appearance to make it darker. I like typing light colored text on a dark background. It's easier on my eyes. So that's the only change that I've done to this. You can do that by going up here to Tools, Global Options, and then under Appearance, you can pick any number of options here. What I've selected is Tomorrow Night Bright. That's my preference here. So in our GUI, let's find the R template script that I've posted to Blackboard. I'm just going to go to recent places here. It should be here. There it is. You'll see it loads up right here. Right. So here we have the console in the top left, our script in the bottom center here. We're just going to stagger these, and then if we generate any plots, they should appear here on the top right. In RStudio, let's also load the script. Same directory. And so here RStudio loads the script in the top and pushes the console down to the bottom left. So we've got the script in the top left, console in the bottom left. Now going back to the GUI, let's go through this content here. Here we see a lot of hashtags or pound signs. Those are comment signs, so it forces R to ignore anything to the right of them. So what this allows you to do is basically to annotate your code, or to write a lot of comments or notes to yourself in the code. Here I've just got the title of the class, my name, the term. This is an R script template. And then just a couple of quick reminders about assumptions thus far. I assume that you are following along in this video having already downloaded and installed R on your machine, and that you've also downloaded and opened the R Workspace from Pollock's official site. If you haven't done that already, this is Pollock's official site. The address for it is in Chapter 1. It's on page 4, towards the top of page 4. But here on the left you see R Workspace. There's a link that becomes active if you hover over it. And if you right click on that and do Save Link As, you'll see that the R Companion Workspace pops up and you just need to select a directory. I've already saved it. But those are some of the assumptions, right? That you've downloaded and installed R, you've downloaded and opened the R Workspace, and that if you've got this script in front of you, that you've downloaded and opened the R script. So one of the things that's useful that Pollock doesn't cover is setting a working directory. That's what we're going to do right here with this command setwd. So I'm just going to select a folder where I'd like everything that I generate for this exercise to be saved. So you'd have the file path here, all the way up to your folder name, and then close quote and close parentheses. You can see that in the template if you've opened it in front of you. Within R, you can highlight the portion of the text, and then you can hit Control R on a Windows machine, or it would be Command R on a Mac, and it'll execute the command. You see up here in the console it's executed the command. We can check that we have the right working directory by doing get wd open parentheses close parentheses, and there you see the directory. We can check it again by typing directory or list.files. Either one will produce the same result. It'll give you the files that are inside that directory, and those are indeed the files in my working directory, so that's what I would like. So now let's load the workspace. There's a couple of ways we can do that. We can either go to, in the GUI, we can go to, oops, hang on a second. Oh, if you place your cursor in the console and then go to File menu in the top left, you'll see Load Workspace as one of the options. So click on that and then find your directory where you have saved the workspace. There it is. So I can open it there, or you can also load the workspace by using the load command and then the file path to the directory. So if I hit Control R, it would accomplish the same thing. And then going to the first command that Pollock has us run, which is at the bottom of page 4, is the ls command. We're just going to list the objects in this workspace. Again, you can highlight ls, open parentheses, close parentheses, and hit Control R, and you see that the output matches the output at the top of page 5. You could also go in the console and type ls, open parentheses, close parentheses, as I've just done there, and hit return. Same output, but as I've mentioned elsewhere and will continue to emphasize, I'm requiring, well, strongly encourage you elsewhere, but I'm requiring you to do so in this course to work in RScript so you can keep track of everything you do. If you wanted to replicate the contents in box 1.1 on page 5, you could use this names command. So you could do names of the variables in the world data set, and if you hit Control R, you see that the output there matches the output in box 1.1 on page 5. The next thing we'd like to do is install all of the packages that Pollock has prepared for us. So we want to do that with this install C command. So we'll highlight the command, hit Control R again, and then we're going to need to pick a mirror, scroll down to something close to us like Pennsylvania, double click, and then those packages are going to start installing as you can see them doing so in the console. In the meantime, let's go to RStudio and just do the same thing and look for any useful differences. First of all, you see the script is loaded here, but everything is commented out in a way that is very visible. It's kind of grayed out, so it's a little bit harder to read. than say the first command on line 34. Another useful thing is that the line number is there to begin with, right? If you go back to the R GUI, there are no line numbers. So line numbers are very helpful if you're sharing code or working with someone else or on with a group or on a team. So you can say, I'm having a problem with the code on line 34. Can you take a look at it and help me out? And then the code itself is highlighted differently, right? You see the command is in white, brackets are in blue, quotations are in yellow. These are all nice features that set different parts of speech or parts of code apart, right? So it's easy to see them. So let's set this working directory, just doing the same thing, Control R, and then highlight, make sure we have the right directory, check the contents. Yep. Now let's load the workspace and see what happens. I'm just going to highlight this by clicking on the line number and hitting Control R. The workspace loads, and you can see right away up at the top right something changed in the environment tab, right, in the environment window. And what has happened here basically is that the environment in RStudio, we can see the different data sets that load and all of the functions that load with the workspace, right? So this is the contents of the workspace that Pollock has prepared for us. This is all of it. Another nice thing we can do with data sets is click on the data set itself just to kind of quickly browse through it. So if we click on GSS, the General Social Survey, you can see it pop up in here as a table, sort of in tabular format, in a more traditional rectangular format. And we could quickly browse through here to get a better sense of what this data is all about, right? We could do the same thing with the other data sets there. If we wanted to close it, we'll just close this little window up here. So we're back at the R script. We can also get a sense of what types of commands we've typed in the recent past in the history tab. And otherwise, that's about all we can see right now. We do have the searchable help window over here. If we had it in trouble, we could type any word in here and search through the help feature. So let's keep working through here. We can go through all the commands again, list the objects in the workspace, see the contents of the variable names in the world data set. I'm just hitting Control R on everything that I highlight, and then let's install the packages. So we're going to do Control R, and you see the packages start to load. So while those packages are loading, let's go back to the GUI and the script in the GUI here. Let's now use the lib command, which opens the packages that we've installed. This is the library command. You see it's already executed, and then we can quickly move through some of the commands that Pollock has prepared or has asked us to execute in chapter 1. So this builds a frequency table. It's the FREQ command. If we hit Control R, we see the frequency table generates in the console, and now the plot or the histogram generates in this plot window in the top right that has appeared for the first time, right? This plot window has now appeared for the first time. So here we have our results, here we have our script, and now we have our plot window. We could keep going through. Towards the end of the script, this is the last command that Pollock asks us to do. In between, I've just offered you a little snippet of code that allows you to save any plot to your working directory. So whatever directory you're in, it'll create a portable networks graphic, this PNG, with this file name using this code, right? So this is the same code as the frequency plot up here. And this PNG command basically opens a plot window, and then the device off command closes that plot window. And altogether, you open a portable networks graphic plot window, you generate this plot, and then you close that window. So if you do this, you will generate a plot and saves as a PNG file in your working directory. Moving down to the bottom, this is the last command that Pollock asks us to do in the main body of chapter 1. We can print that, and that will have generated an HTML document in our working directory. So if we go to that working directory, here it is. Here's that image file that I generated earlier. You could insert that into any other document that you wanted, and then here's the HTML file. I've actually done this 3 times, so it just keeps adding the table to the other one, but you should just see one table up at the top left. So that's chapter 1. That's the body of chapter 1 in this template R script in our GUI. You can see that the script itself is monochromatic. There are no line numbers. There's no helpful highlighting or auto-completion. The console itself is relatively plain, and then we have one window, and if we generated a new plot, this plot would disappear, and we have little else here. There is a search utility in the GUI up here under the edit window. If you click on the R script and do edit, you can find. It's a little bit clunky because you have to tell it to search up or down, otherwise it might miss something. And then you can also replace things without having to tell it what to search for, or up or down. But that's the R GUI. Now let's quickly do the same thing in RStudio. So we've installed all our packages. Now let's open them with the lib command. Now one other thing that we can do at this point is go over to our packages window and see what packages are installed and which ones have been opened, right? So which ones are available basically, and then which ones have been opened with the library command. That's a nice feature. Now if we generate the same frequency table we just generated, hitting Control R, you see that the plot generates down here in the lower right. And we have a couple of options here. We can zoom to it, or we can export it as a PDF or an image, or copy it to a clipboard. And if we saved it as an image, we just tell it what kind of image. You have several options, and then where to save it, right? In which directory to save it. But I'll cancel out of this right now. And if you generated multiple plots here, right? Now you could scroll through these plots. These are obviously the same, but you could, if you had multiple plots, you had a history of 10 or 20 or 30 plots, you could scroll through them without having to regenerate them. That's a nice feature. And then this is the same command that generates a separate image file in your working directory. And then we've got this command that generates the extra table in the HTML document. Again, since now this is the 4th time I've done it, there should be 4 now. And there's the extra table down at the bottom. So that's RStudio. That's the same template script in RStudio. We've got some line numbers. We've got different highlighting. If I were to type these commands on my own, right, say like print C, you can see that RStudio is hinting or prompting me to complete the command with various options that are available. So I could do print C. You can see that it automatically generates parentheses. So we want to do frequency. It's again prompting me to autocomplete. And we want NES. As soon as we do the $ for now the next thing that's going to come is a variable name. It pulls up all the variable names in the data set, right? In this case, the National Election Study data set. So we could go all the way down. If we couldn't remember what it was, there's party 7. Okay. So now, and then we want our weight, so we pull it up, and again we could scroll down looking for, where is weight? Well, we could just fill it in here. But you could see that it was automatically creating parentheses, just like it might also create brackets or quotation marks. And it has several nice autocomplete features, prompting you with different code commands and with different variable names within different data sets. So these are some nice features of the script. You can also search and replace more easily at the click of a button here within your script. The console also has various colors, so it can help you discern different types of output. In the environment window, you can easily see what objects are available to you, data sets, functions, etc. You can access the history of a recent history of commands. You can scroll through different plots, see what files are available, see what packages are available, which ones are open, scroll through a searchable um, help feature, and then we've got an additional viewer that becomes active with other commands. So these are all very nice features of RStudio. I've mentioned you can change the appearance, and down the road we'll address some of the more advanced workflow features that I hinted at earlier. But for now, this is a nice comparison, brief introduction to RStudio. Again, it's not required that you work in RStudio, but I do recommend it just because of the nice interface that it provides with R. It makes it easier to learn R, especially if you're new to the programming language. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.